and I'm looking forward to hear your piece which introduced Brahms to the Schumanns.
Yes, thank you.
Have you started? Have you studied it for a long time yet?
No, this is quite new.
Oh, good.
Yes.
First experience.
Yes, first performance, freshly learned.
Oh, God. When Joachim met Brahms, he was a famous violinist. He heard Brahms sketch for him this sonata and told him, when I was a child, I was a student of Ferdinand David in the Leipzig Conservatory, which, by the way, was founded, and literally founded, by Mendelssohn. And Ferdinand David was the concertmaster of the Gewandhaus Orchestra that Mendelssohn was conducting, for whom he composed the concerto. And as a first violin student of Ferdinand David in the new Leipzig Conservatory in the 1850s, or even earlier, it was Joseph Joachim. And Joseph Joachim suggested to Brahms, you should play your new piece to Schumann. So he obtained an appointment with the Schumanns through Joachim. And he started playing your sonata first movement. And Schumann called Clara and said, come on, come hear this. This is incredible, guy. Well, he said it in better words. And the thing which is striking is that this symphonic writing is so appealing even today. And when Brahms wrote his first symphony, I don't know if you know the newspapers wrote Beethoven's 10th.
Wow.
So there must have been something that connected him because of the immortal beloved quotation of Beethoven in the Schumann Fantasy. And then Brahms becoming the quasi-babysitter of the 8 Schumann kids staying there to study with. And this sonata was what opened him the gates of the appreciation of Schumann, who was a very harsh critic in his Zeitschrift für Musik. Even Chopin was not of his favorites in his reviews, but this was. So, how did you start it? Both hands? Separate hands? Or just immersed yourself in it?
I did both hands, and I did no pedal for several weeks to just, yeah.
That's amazing.
It was really fun, actually. And then.
So substitution galore?
Yeah, substitute, and then just sort of like the physical, getting a map of it, when we do gesturing. So.
In my generation, the teachers obliged us to play without pedal in lessons, screaming, legata, sing, sing, sing. And I never understood the torture of it, because in practice I did. But in lesson I thought we were supposed to play the piece. But in fact it's a lot to do with the substitution fingerings. And when you watch today close-ups of videos of performances, the famous ones of the day, 5-5-5 everything with pedal. The foot legato. But because it takes a little bit more risk to change the balance of the hand when you do substitution.
It's fun, but a little.
So,
risky, so.
let's hear what you prepared. say.
I know. I guess I tend to be drawn towards
Great.
this. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I thought about that one too, but I picked Brahms for this recital.
but sometimes I notice that some students are more challenged by something that drives them to go beyond the limit of their expectation rather than practicing, because it seems a bit boring to manage minimalism whenever giant spread of textures seems like we have to have at least 3 hands and I don't know how many pedals. But no, the reason I think is true is that it helps the practicing motivation. Has it happened to you when you start a piece, God, I love it so much, and by practicing it you start going, oh God.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want to bypass the practicing to be playing it. That's why I asked you how you practice it, and you said separate hands without pedal, which was by itself a show of great wisdom. I didn't ask if you use metronome.
Oh, I should more with this.
No, it's
I
not
normally
because
do.
it's not a moral thing, metronome. No, it was because my teacher obliged me to count loud voice instead of the metronome in order to not relate to a mechanical support for the pulse.
Yes.
But the problem is that you have to count independently of the expression of the piece. So you count dry staccato count even if you play legato singing. But I find that practicing loud voice counting helps a lot to maintain the tempo after. The metronome, I use it mostly to advise it at least as a monitor. Did I derail from the tempo or am I still on? Until cell phones, the lost and found in Bloomington where I teach, was selectively by Freudian slips losing always their metronomes. End of semester you had this collection of electronic metronomes that are conveniently forgotten by the students, free to collect, but now since they are all on the cell phones you never see them anymore. But it's a device that is external to you. You have to internalize the count, right?
Yes, exactly.
The problem is that pianists play mostly following their fingers rather than conducting their fingers. And of course some textures. So I'm going to try to help you with several things I observed. To start with the third beat chord, which is an escape in the high register, there. And rightfully to prepare your bass, you took it off with the pedal.
Oh.
And I find that it's unnecessary because to me, the hemiola opening is almost mirroring a 4/4. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. So those who know me as students know that if I ask a question, the answer is always hemiola. This way you cannot get wrong, because I see hemiolas everywhere. I mean, in Brahms is not difficult because they are everywhere. But the fact is that this third beat is third beat in a bar of 3/4. But in the 2 bars of 3/2, it's the second beat. 1, 2, 3. So it squares a little bit the 3. It's no more long and short. And when he does this, he didn't have motorcycles on red light, but this is what they sound like. second of 3 large half-note beats.
Okay.
Like 1, 2, and then you have 3, and then 1, 2, and then 3.
Okay.
Yes, but what you do is that you do this ballistic landing, which takes forever, but it's
And it's
beautiful.
an accent on the offbeat. And
No, well, it's not offbeat because it's in fact not an offbeat.
right.
If you think in 3/2, it's not an offbeat, which is why I think it's deceiving.
Yeah. Oh no, but this.
No, I understand. Oh yeah, you mean for this.
Yeah.
I personally think that this is organ pedal holding. If it was a middle pedal, then he wrote as if he had a middle pedal and he didn't. And so we go from one to the other with this and this and this. So I suggest a blind person sliding on the keys,
Okay.
speed of light shifting. So you're close to the keys at any time, and you don't drop. In fact, most of us in piano do this because since we don't count, like conductors do, but they don't play. We play, so we forget to count. The gesture that we do in the air represent the space between the beat. Sort of a choreographic metronome. We do and but we land without any discernment of the sound quality. And if you're just playing this part and your partner plays on top, you're not going to do this. You're just doing this. So that's why I suggest to touch play before, meaning shift touch before you play, which means you play. Now you play upon landing, and you will need to wait until you need to play. If you shift before the beat, so it'll be. And I find it practical because it allows to control better the sound when you play from close up. It's a harmonic pedal. It holds harmonies. But when we have step motions, then we have and pianists generally are very accepting of this smearing. Because what can we do else? We don't have 2 keyboards, we don't have 2 pedals for each keyboard. But we have the middle pedal. And this is very controversial because usually people say if the composer didn't have it, why will I use it? And the problem is that when you use it, it compartments so well the elements that it lacks the blending. So in a way, it's either blurred, either separated. In fact, it's unplayable. I think there must have been a level of resonance combinations that was expected by the composer with the right foot pedal. For instance, when you play the first degree, then you play the second degree, and it overlaps. We hear. When you play the first prelude, you play first degree, second degree, you wouldn't do. But of course, it's a simple thing played in the middle of range. And so I find that ideally I would like to hear this F. If you do the half pedal up of the right foot quickly down, then you keep a little bit of its resonance. middle pedal option to clarify the spectrum of all the layers and all the combinations of harmonies and secondary voices and everything. It's almost hospital floor clean. So there must be a midway that you can try to find. I haven't found it yet, so don't worry.
Okay.
But I know what I would like to imagine possible, other than a friend playing the bass line for you in the concert. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring my colleague to play what Brahms wrote for 3 lines. My organ pedals. Regarding the holding of the chord, it was because if you were to use the mid pedal and you change the right foot pedal from this to this, then you hold it even without the pedal. So you hear this, and you only hear these notes. And if you put the right foot pedal, all the dampers up, you hear more resonance. So it's probably an aesthetic choice ultimately. But what you did is what everybody does. And what I suggest is what nobody does. And so probably it's because it's not rewarding ultimately to have such a separation of the elements. And of course, one never finds one's hand large enough and one's sound big enough. Is it something you experience in this piece? Do I have enough grain sound?
I guess I'm always searching for more, but trying not to push as well. So yeah, and there's a couple of reaches that are a little awkward, but.
So another thing that I would like to jump into, because as usual, I am constrained by time. I guess we'll call that Until the Grave, which is really upsetting. We never have time until there is no more time. But I have to be precise because I wanted to show you some things that I thought of. The transition to the second theme, I would like you to do merging traffic rather than slow down and restart. You don't want to be distracted by the aisle that you go through to the next room. You want to go to the next room. I found that your ritenuto was under, and of course your second theme was adagio, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how you like it.
Well,
it's normal.
Yeah. I'm not convinced.
No, but you are, and you was convincing the way you were doing it. I wanted, since we have an opportunity, to tell you that adagio originally was in 2 words in Italian, ad agio, which means at ease. Andante is walk, leisure walk. And so andante ad agio means leisure walk that takes the time. And then when Melzel in 1815 marketed that instrument, metronome, in Vienna, he chose to call it in 1 word because it's less room on the dial of the adagio. And so we assume it because of this amount of beats a minute that this is slow. But adagio isn't slow. Adagio is at ease. Were you there last night?
Yes.
So normally it should be andante with pedal, because the length of sound is our, especially the decay, is our denial that we sing with a percussive instrument. That is the flowing tempo, where you feel the arch of the phrasing. like spelling the word than saying it. I-L-O-V-Y-O-U. But it is true that this is the same ecstatic moment which I felt you were entering in. Do you know ecstatic means? You're in the presence of something that enlightens you by its grace, the beauty. In no more action, you receive, you're in contemplation. And I understand that to obtain the sound color that you want for this bubble moment, you need the time to touch it from close up and control it, right?
Yeah.
So because I was lucky to study with 80 years older teacher than me, talk about age gap, I realized that old people, already as a child when I was, play music or think music less slow for the slow movements. And I felt so deeply for the slow movements that I never understood how it's possible. And I would go. I think it's almost self-serving because you enter in a mood where it's soothing. It's a solace more than soothing to play the second theme.
Yeah.
You know that Mozart wrote the B section of his C minor sonata before Beethoven's Pathétique in A flat major. And Beethoven wrote in A flat major. And Brahms writes. So the hint is obvious. But when you play it so slow, it's less. So I thought perhaps you were trying to separate the notes of the melody so we don't get the hint. Or it was not your intention.
I think I'm trying to balance all the different voices, especially like the tenor. I think I'm just going slow because I'm processing and trying to listen to everything.
That's what
But,
go ahead.
But I think, con espressione, I think it definitely can move more, because then, there's the sassoon.
Even without the hint of the plagiation, which is not obviously, it was a borrowing of the theme of Beethoven, who took it from Mozart. Obviously, everybody can go a step down and a fourth up. So it's not like, it's probably serendipitous. But the point is that espressione comes from the Latin ex, which in Italian with two S, espressione. Ex, the prefix means out. Impression is what you receive. Expression is what you express. That means you bring out. And it's always very confusing for a pianist because we say piano and con espressione. So if you do that with the strings, you put more vibrato, you put more intensity in the bow, more speed. But I think that we shouldn't be so worried about the espressione as much as the flow. Ultimately, what unites the different thematic contrasts in the sonata form are the transitions and the pulse mostly. So if you have it seems too fast. It seems mundane. It's like daily. Oh my God, it's not so special. And what I observed with the old people playing slow tempi fast is that they are not hectic. And I couldn't play calm unless I played slow when I was young. And now aging, I'm able to play, if needed, fast, the slow movements. Faster, not fast. Another thing is the transition to the end of the return to major in the development. It's not, it's the D sharp goes to the E flat. Again, defeat with the decay. And for this, I like that you take it in the right hand. And for the chords before, what was it? Yeah. Can you align the thumb of the left hand with the right hand chord rather than the pinky? Because
Yes,
you play.
Yeah, I can. I'm just. I'm not sure how to pedal. I don't know. Maybe I just need to.
And then I think it's rather than the Sante meaning heavy, so hints that it could be slightly allargando if not ritenuto. I don't think Brahms could play the tens, but he still wrote them. So it's not because of practicality, I think it's because of the stretch of the resonance of the disposition. But it's management of this arpeggio situation. In the famous rising of syncopation, this is the most frustrating part in the piece. Because here you want to have 72 violins all playing. And the higher syncopations, the skinnier the sound of the piano in the top, it sounds like. And so I came with one solution after this many years of teaching it. The drawback is it sounds like an accordion, but because of the bellows, but it does project the syncopation, ta 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 ta, where each of the repeated chords is louder than the preceding.
Yeah.
Another thing, which I'm obliged to jump from one spot to another, is everybody agrees that after, I don't see the bar number, is it 123?
Yes.
This goes nowhere. But no. In modern scores, they would have it with little dotted lines. The second theme is in relative major, right? A flat major? You're aware of that?
Yes.
So that's why I think in sonata forms, traditional sonata forms of Haydn's making, it's that much fewer in principal minor keys. Because you have to deal with cap.
Right.
And they tonalize the second theme in the principal key, but in major. And very few did in minor, like in 310. And when you have this kind of transformation, you would have had the second theme. Originally it's major. minor principal key sonata, you have to have the second theme tonalized as it was in the exposition in major. So you finish in major. Now in Romantic era, major was hope more than sadness for minor. Because when you have, if he had, he would have been in D minor with the second theme, but by finishing in major, he starts, if not, he would have finished in D minor. He would have done it in D major, and nobody would have found out bad anyway. But it's a fact to observe that when the second theme comes back in major in the recap, it changes the whole ending because you finish in major. When the tragic sonata starts in minor, it's almost, and Schumann does sometimes the minor version, meaning not transforming it in major. But the E sharp minor sonata, second theme is. I personally go for it a lot because I find that it's so beautifully meaningful and subtle and possibly disturbing to certain kind to have been friends with the second theme that comes like a blossoming beautiful moment after the tragic exposition of the first theme. After all, this is what is. So then I wouldn't do, meaning I wouldn't change it. As my teacher used to say, if you don't like it the way it's written, write your own and play. But you have to be deeply aware of it because it changes a lot of the, and that's mostly the reason for which there are so fewer principal minor key pieces, sonata forms. Most of the sonatas are in major. And if they're in minor, they do that little transformation. I think in Baroque, minor and major didn't have as much of a mood feel, but in Romantic era it did. I mean, honestly, if you do. Okay, it's a color, but it's not tragic. But you wouldn't do it. And when the second theme is transformed in major and it goes in minor, then it changes its appearance. And when you have the example I gave you of Schumann is very talking. Because you have the sense for the Romantic era of the hope in the relative major and the sadness in the recap. I'm sorry I'm speaking too long. I'm so grateful that you played for me and for us. And enjoy your journey ahead with this piece. It's a lifetime companion, this sonata. So who is playing the ballade?
Yeah, me.
Oh, we're going to stay in F minor. That's wonderful. When did you start your ballade?
When did I
To start learning it? Recently? Or is it an old piece that you put in the microwave to reheat? Or did you just learn it?
July this year.
July! And we are in October. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Mine is this, yours is there. Okay, perfect. Can I return you the pencil at the end?
Yes.
Thank you for providing it.
You're welcome.
Very thoughtful. And when you started it, oh, you play 101.
I have time to play it, but I hadn't.
That's the advantage of the folders, is that we can see what else is being practiced. So, I see quarter pedalings, half pedalings, indications. But you seem to, in the performance right now, the level of your knowledge of the piece, you're most preoccupied by the fingers than by the foot. So in time you'll clean up things, for instance this. You don't need to sunken cathedral to sink all these chords and octaves in the pedal, because you do a very good job. Can you play left-handed octaves? Now the pedal and sink it in. I think people usually do that when they're not very comfortable with their octaves to cover up. But you're good!
Okay.
You don't use 4 in octaves, you use mostly 5, right? Finger, like the black keys 4, white keys white, and the 5. You use 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Is it because it's more practical for the imprint? So you don't play it?
I can do both, but I tend to use 5.
Whatever is comfortable is one thing, but what is meaningful is another thing. And obviously when you play octaves, unless you're a giant, you cannot finger the top. Like you would do with 6. So if you have a connecting finger, low part of the octave, and then you slide the thumb, without the pedal, you can have a detached thumb and connected, if not legato, octave. It's like both double basses. And doing separate notes with pedal enhances that slices of the notes. Well, that's one thing. Very interesting. I would say that your opening should make a better demonstration of the repeated melodic notes last note.
The last one.
You know, when we say that Chopin listened to Bellini and he loved the bel canto and he wants to do that singing on the piano, it's a denial of percussive instrument. But when you sing, you can change syllables on the single note. I would like to tell you how much I would like to dance. And you don't hear it repeated because you hear different words or syllables. And so on the piano, to be singing would have been more intuitive, pianistically, to have step motion. But when he has repeated notes, on the piano they're repeated because they're percussive. It's a hammer that hits. But I would like to help you to express melodically the repeated notes as if it was, and it's, because each syllable being different if it was an imaginary text. Do you repeat the note with the lifting of the key or halfway up? Do you do? Or do you do? Yeah. Can you replay? Try it. It's tricky. To lift it halfway up. And I think the intensity of the repeated note is like a term of endearment or a passion word. I really, really, really want to dance with you. In other words, there is a sense of intensity, if you want, that this helps more than the factual replaying. And the last of the four is the one that reaches the either dissonance, minor ninth, or consonance with a harmonization. Now, Cortot, you must have heard about him.
Yeah.
You don't have to if you didn't. At least many people today don't remember that there was a fashion, and that's on the surface of things, it's more subtle than that for their motivation, but to slightly delay the melodic note with the bass note in Chopin when you want to express pain or joy. So when you start suspended, then by the end of the second bar, you build your dominant seventh, but you haven't heard yet the tonic, which is only coming here, the low F. Same in the first ballade. So he starts up and then he drops down the bass, and at the moment of your fourth G, the second bar, you have a major ninth, appoggiatura to the F, 9/8. But in fact, the song is sad. And we have the false expectation that it will be a happy song. Yes, it is. And so what I suggest is to have that slight dislocation between the bass and the melody on the fourth repeated G when you have the bass note and the major line. It shines like a sunshine. And Cortot used to slightly play and teach to delay the bass with the top, instead of playing aligned. The problem is that if we apply it everywhere, then it becomes unnatural. But if we choose where to do it, it's good. For instance, if you do being a unison, you go straight into it, and just after that is minor ninth. It helps to slightly The problem is that if you do it too obvious, it's like, oh no, it's too demonstrative for that. I also see that in the G flat major section, you played without una corda.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's where you were taught to use half and quarter pedal of the right foot.
I think these are too light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I also think the right hand is better.
Really?
Yeah.
He doesn't continue it, right? I think that in the expression of the opening page, the restatement of the song in minor, in major, or half major, minor, major introduction. Or perhaps the opening is the Réminiscences, and then we start the story at the beginning. Whichever way, he plays with major and minor with emotional effects. And then the G flat major section is in pentatonic, no leading tone. And so it's relatively neutral, no more emotional. Layered. Try to play it once with una corda, just to try, it's a lab. It's not a final for the solution. And the fingers not disconnecting from the keys, like this. Inside the keys, not from above the keys. It's so beautiful, meaningful. I want to bring out everything to the point to which, when the theme was returning, you started your crescendo so early. It felt like you announce it. I think you should delay it the longest possible. Daydream moment, dazed, almost lost, and then all of a sudden. But why? But why not? So the leap of the 10th is a very big expression because it's above the octave. In the second partita, Capriccio, Bach does. The 10th is a big leap. Here it's not a jumpy, happy, playful, which is what the title of the Capriccio means, as you like. Here it's an expression of an emotion that goes beyond the octave. Remember? Did you play this? He doesn't always do the leap of the 6th, the octave, but very rarely the 10th. And so I think when it comes out of this daydream, I don't know what, but something, at least, or delay both. And nano delay gives that intensity of the leap. I know there is a diminuendo marking on top of the melodic line. I prefer to take my decision of interpretation from the pattern of the notes and the leap rather than from the marking. And if I have to do diminuendo, yes, but no, I retrieve before I reach. Then in major, I would privilege the crescendo. So I could do one closing, one opening. Bottom of this page, you have. I think you should play these 3/16 notes chords without pedal. And not. Again, it's over smears. I fingered for you this. 4, 5, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5. So 4, 5, 4, 3. And then 5, 3, 4, 5. Yes. So the problem is that if you do finger in intensity octaves, you have to have very strong support of the palm under the 4th and 5th finger. So you can practice it. So you can strengthen the support of the finger because it's not the arm that plays it. I think it's playable with 5/5/5, but it's more chopped. Though the resonance in good holes makes it less sounding chopped, but I still like fingered legato to suggest at least to work on it. You know, when you face the tragedy of life that starts at birth, that means you'll die slowly, but it's inevitable. So the rest of the time what you do is distract yourself from that hopeless moment, because you have so much things to live, to give, to share, to experience. And so even in the most intense, driven, fateful music like this opening section of the fourth ballade is, there is a moment of distraction. There's something so reassuring in being in the middle of drama, being light-hearted, superficial, vain. I think vain is a very good feeling. It's difficult to switch all of a sudden to something very light-hearted now, because I heard you play. It's possible, but I think it's more like a distraction. Distraction from the obvious. The drama. Another place I wanted to suggest for you not to use a pedal is this. It's bar 113, who would have guessed? Because it's a cut, slice, accent, and staccato, and it's not. So this is little thing that I marked. You know that Akir the old-fashioned in minor, which actually I grew up with, not knowing that there was. Have you heard it played like that by others?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was young, Paderewski was the edition to have. Now, if you don't have the new Polish national here, some kind of your text. Oh. Baron writer. Oh. But in fact, Chopin copied 3 times each of his pieces for 3 publishers in his lifetime in Germany, France, and England. And when you copy, willing or not, you add little discrepancies. So that could be the reason for which there are so many authentic things. One thing that I would like you to double check is when you play bar 144, beat 6, top part, left hand. Right? Sixth beat, left hand, top part. Yes, and not. It's. You played F natural. You played. And it's. Was it just accidental, probably?
Yeah.
You learned it F flat.
Yeah.
Can you replay the bar so we hear it? The perfect pitch my parents gave me to detect those disappointments for students because, Professor, I liked it better my way. Sounded good. And when you reveal it, the student first is startled because it's wrong, but that's easy, it's factual. But then you have to accept it. Of course, it's because we're no more used to think so much about the accidental through the bar. And it's very chromatic for our excuse. I mean, it could have been possibly F natural in another moment of his life. But that was something that is not with the editions. Also, you did a G instead of an E in the memorization, which happens to me all the time. For 152, you played E in the bass. This time he doesn't use the E. This kind of things drive me crazy for memorization. Because sometimes he does this, sometimes he does this. He's like, which one is now? And I'm trying to go to the essential. Well, by the time I jump over every detail, nothing is left. You know this? For the listener to process this acceleration of secondary dominant progressions, it's already difficult. It's okay. There was a famous Romanian conductor, Celebidac, who believed in phenomenology, that was that you play slower so that people can hear everything. But that's not always connected to the feel. And here the feel is that it's stress-driven and anxiety-driven, almost panicked. And you feel like you don't hear all of the chords. What I noticed is that in the right hand, in the fast tempo you play, I heard the octaves, but I didn't hear the chords inside. Can you play once with the chords? Now in the tempo in which you played before. progressions, but you think of it by groupments of realization of the secondary dominance to the secondary tonus. It's meant to startle by having this quick, faster than people can process as a listener, chord progression. But in any case, it's a long and beautiful path ahead, and musical as you are, I have no doubt that you'll do a great job with the fourth ballade in the coming 40, 50, 60 years. And you'll get to my age and you'll still wonder, how can I really play it well? But now is the time where you're at the age to say, I will play it well. And you will. Congratulations. I don't discourage when I say many years. I encourage because the more you dig, the more you find, the more it gives. It's like a gift that keeps on giving, this ballade. It's unfortunate that it's so popular, so you hear it played by so many people that you don't always know what to play yourself. But if you go to the patterns of the notes of the figurations, you can find more answers than only, unless it's a very rare piece that nobody else plays, and then you have your own vision. But it's a great piece to live with. Long path ahead with you for it. Bravo. Are you the Don Giovanni Lisztian? You're playing the Don Juan paraphrase.
Yes, by Liszt.
You know paraphrase?
Yes, it's a transcription.
No. No. It's a restatement. Of course it's a transcription because you have no singers in orchestra. But beyond that, it's not the whole opera.
Oh, it's a selection.
Yes. And that's why he was so special, because he could make this. In fact, it's silly ultimately to pretend to do that. But he had such charisma that the silly things became charismatic with him. I assume, because I wasn't there, but. You know, yesterday when I played the Requiem in its entirety, of course there are more striking movements than others. And I never choose to make a medley of it, a paraphrase of it. That was possible and less time consuming, but it's timeless, suspended time. In the 90s, my publisher asked me to transcribe for piano and orchestra Mussorgsky's pictures. And he told me, make a mix that lasts 20 minutes. And I remember saying, my teacher would kill me and I don't know how to make a mix. So I'm going to make a concerto of the whole piece. Plus I added cadenzas. So it's not only the whole piece, but it's the whole piece plus more notes. And so it's almost 40 minutes. Well, actually it could be 35, but the point is that Liszt is very good at summarizing a great piece that enticed people to hear it in real. But he has good taste and great charisma. So how far in time can we trace your knowledge of this piece? Did you start it this summer, this fall, last summer? When did you start learning it?
Last year?
So it's already in your system.
Yes, I think so.
It lives with you. So you need your score?
No,
I need this, right?
Yes.
To write. Because you brought two, I didn't know which one I should write at. Is this?
Yes, please. Very same.
So let's applaud you. some we have to sell. Now the question is to find the right balance of self-serving in the sale. But if you're not overly characterizing the expression of the different motifs of the opera that goes from greatest jubilant laugh to the tragedy of the demise, which is the story of the character Don Giovanni, right? You live it intensely. Wow! So you enjoy practicing it.
Yes, I really enjoy this piece because I like the character of Don Giovanni.
Hopefully you won't meet him. But it is true that Mozart managed to bring in a very unambiguous way the two facets of the same devil man. In a certain way, you have that in the Faust myth with the Liszt Sonata, but in a more tragic side than only rejoicing side. It's more 18th century here. Interesting. Have you watched the opera?
Yes. That looks like.
Well, obviously.
Yes.
So far. And when he does the introduction of the exposition for the overture, and when he goes to the chromatic scales, he uses the melodic ascending and the melodic descending in Liszt to enhance the dramatic effect in the 19th century. He uses the harmonic minor. He uses the harmonic minor with the flat 6 and the 7th degree, which is leading tones, or the gap. And I find that very telling in the detail of the coloring, how he makes it even more dark than Mozart. D minor is a very special key to Mozart. Requiem, 466 concerto. One of the most wonderful quartets. Of course, we have the D minor fantasy. Did you play it? But overall, there are those few that he wrote in D minor. I think there was a sense of tragedy for D minor from Mozart. Strangely, Beethoven chose C minor for the tragedy mostly. Fifth Symphony, 111, Pathétique. Each composer chooses one color. Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony is B minor. So I think that if the tonality. Now, what is interesting is that in the happy moments that you play after the dramatic introduction, you have this dolce andantino teneramente. Do you think it's playful, whimsical, enticing? Because you played so interestingly the separations of the resonance. So how you hear it?
Because all the rests and dotted rhythms, I thought it would be more light. But
Yeah, but he says teneramente,
yeah,
which means
tenderly.
tenderly.
Yeah.
And I hear it's more playfully. And I wrote myself here a reminder to talk to you about it. Tender equals playful, question mark. It's a bit of both, evidently. When you have the big chromatic scale, you reach earlier in bar 56, the fermata is on the rest that follows, not on the chord. So it's and then you see what I mean?
Yes.
With the pedal, it lengthens it. Same thing which you can do at 76. Ta-di. And also when you could slightly delay to separate the two and then the syncopation off with the legato after. Almost hesitant and then forward. There was an E in the left hand that I would like you to bring out at 101 in the left hand. Because you started on A. All the others you started on E, but not this one. I was wondering if it was just a slip of the moment. On the spot, I mean. Same thing about 149. And not in my humble view. I was very curious about your chromatic thirds in the right hand. Because you seem to have a system as if your fingers are made of rubber. And they're sort of flexible. You're very good at quick thirds. Did you practice a lot of that, or was it natural? This kind of thing.
Both. I think I practiced a lot with this.
In the little dance of variation 2, you have this dotted rhythm. It's a bit like almost not, but a rest in between the dotted rhythm. Like. And the piano has a tendency to resonate too long for that. So I would do a scratchy sound, a scratchy play. Not dropping, but retrieving. It allows to have more space between the sounds. If not, the staccato connects, got these octaves or something else. I wonder to which extent at 410 you can bring more, or is it colorizing and everything. But if you delay it, it gives it a bit more impulse. Ya da da da. Can you try it? Not before the F, just on the F. Me? That's all. Oh, just that, not even more, even less. Can you play the last section, please? I'm sorry, I made the double bar. It's always on the way down that we mess up on the piano, right? It's because going up, we close the drawer, or going down, we open the drawer. So make sure you keep very high wrist on the white keys like F, D, coming from the black key, and stay up wrist on the way down. And then, very separated. You connect them. I'm very impressed. You really are very beautifully representing the characters of the different characters of the opera. This is really well done. Congratulations, bravo. Thank you. Thank you to all for having
Thank you for a
attended.
wonderful class.